Witch's return. Ugh, I need a coffee. Don't you mean another coffee? What is this, your third? I'd have much preferred going home last night to coming in for the overnight shift, Sam groused. You were the one who said you could handle it, Liam pointed out. No one made you meet us at Polaris rather than get some sleep before your shift started. He snorted in amusement as Sam's head thudded on the desk. Chuckling, he filled a mug with a strong sludge that passed for coffee in the island's police department. He placed it on Sam's desk before heading to his own. Sam acknowledged him with a grunt, already downing the drink like a frat boy goaded into chugging his beer. That'll get me home, at least. How on earth can you drink that stuff so quickly? Liam asked in amazement. Grimacing as he set the empty mug down, Sam replied, Fast is the only way to drink this stuff. It's toxic. Then why drink it at all? Because it does the trick. The Navy taught me to survive on more than cafe au lait, but no one said I was forced to savor inferior crap. Liam laughed, but his reply was cut off by the telephone ringing. Both men turned toward the dispatcher's desk. She hung up and met the men's gazes, her face white. Connie? A body was found on the North Cliffs. Mace was jogging along there and spotted it. He'll wait there until you arrive. Both men stood. As Sam ran outside to get the patrol car, Liam paused beside the obviously shaken dispatcher, a woman he had known his entire life. Since Connie was his mom's best friend, he considered her an honorary aunt. Connie, call Ed and Doc Harris and let them know. We'll meet them there. Will you be all right here? She took a deep breath, steadying herself. I'll be fine, Liam. Best get going. With a final searching look, Liam nodded and headed outside. As he joined Sam in the patrol car, he pulled out his cell phone. Hi, Mom? Can you stop down at the station and visit Connie for a bit? No, I can't tell you what's going on right now. You'll know soon enough. But Connie could use some company. Yeah, I'm sure she'd appreciate a decent cup of coffee. Okay, thanks, Mom. Sam glanced at his friend as he drove through town. Good thinking, man. Connie looked really spooked. We don't get many dead bodies turning up around here, Liam replied. In fact, the last one found like this was Sonia's father. I'm certain Connie is remembering that too. She was the dispatcher back then as well. You know your shift's over, Sam. No reason for you to come along. Sam just gave Liam a dry look. No way in hell was he leaving his best friend to deal with this alone. As the land ended, dropping off into the gray-blue ocean, a man in an army t-shirt and jogging pants waved his arm, flagging them down. Sam pulled over and the men got out of the car. Mace, what did you see? The bouncer nodded grimly, leading Sam and Liam toward the cliff edge. Was running along the cliffs when I saw him. It was pretty obvious he's been gone for a while. Also obvious it wasn't natural. A couple houses were situated to the west before the cliffs became forested, rising into the plateau that created the island's entire western side. To the east, the oceanside inn's extensive gardens began. In the distance, the inn itself stood 3 stories high, its wings stretched to embrace the head of Main Street. Mason slowed as the trio approached an area where the land jutted out further into the sea. Sam and Liam halted with him. You okay, man? Sam asked in concern. Mace swallowed hard but nodded. Yeah, it's just, I've seen a lot of shit in my life, and that was even before joining a Delta team, but this, it's seriously twisted. Liam and Sam exchanged glances and started forward once more. As they approached the spit of land, the grisly scene came into view. Both men froze in shock. Is that? Sam asked softly. Liam nodded grimly. It is. Ian Anderson. He swore, swinging around as he ran a hand through his hair. The chief's cruiser pulled up beside their patrol car. Ed Simons and Doc Harris soon joined the trio, swearing just as viciously at the sight. After a moment, Ed cleared his throat. Right, boys, let's document the crime scene and collect our evidence so we can get Anderson out of there. Doc, you want to do your thing while we're waiting on the ambulance? Chief, Liam hesitated, glancing at Sam and Mace. Maybe we should call Sonia? That circle had scanned the scene again, looking through the eyes of a lifelong islander rather than law enforcement this time. Seeing what Liam already had, he agreed with a sigh. As much as I don't want to subject her to this, we need to know if it's safe to enter. And God knows, Mackenzie will be able to answer that better than anyone else around here. Call her. As Liam moved off to place the call, Mace joined Sam. Is Sonia a detective or something? Or something, Sam grimaced. You've been on the island long enough to know things around here aren't always exactly normal. Mace grunted at that, but Sam was not sure if it was in understanding or skepticism. The men waited in silence until Sonia appeared, driving her Graham's red Mini Cooper. She hurried over to join the group as Ed stepped forward to meet her. The look on his face had her stomach churning. She glanced beyond him to Liam. "Oh, Mother." His expression was too similar to the one he had worn as a 13-year-old. Sonia slammed the door on the haunting memories of that day. She returned her attention to the chief of police. "Sonia, honey, I'm sorry to have to call you out here like this, but what happened here?" "Liam's right. We need to know if it's safe for us to approach. It's Ian Anderson. We need to take care of him. I don't want to have to tell his children that we couldn't do what was necessary to get justice for their father." Sonia gasped when she heard who was lying just beyond her sight. Inside, her scream echoed through her skull. Not Mr. Anderson. And if his family needed justice, that meant... She bit her back a sob. After a deep breath, she nodded, pale and teary-eyed, but resolute. "Let me see." She handed a bag to Liam as Ed led her forward. When the scene came into view, Sonia gasped again, nearly choking on the evil in front of her. While her gaze catalogued the details she could see from a distance, she pulled Ed to a halt. She swallowed hard, pale and shaking. It took her several moments to collect herself. "Let me go first, Chief. I won't touch anything." Ed stood aside, allowing Sonia to approach alone. A circle of burned-out candles surrounded a pentagram drawn with salt. Ian Anderson's body was laid out on the pentagram, staked to the ground spread eagle. Splashes of dried blood covered the ground inside the ring of candles. Ian's heart sat amid ashes and pieces of burnt logs above his head. Aside from the gaping cavity in the old man's chest were several stab wounds, testifying to the fact that the farmer's death was anything but easy. A heavy gold chain and amulet nearly obscured the fact that his throat had been slit. Sonia skirted the outside edges of the circle, careful not to step inside. When she rejoined the men, she took her bag from Liam. As she pulled several items out, she spoke. "The circle itself is safe to enter. It's closed. I can't tell what ceremony was performed here yet, except that it is wholly evil. I'm going to cast a spell to allow Mr. Anderson's soul to cross over and rejoin his wife before you do anything else. I can cast from here, so it won't contaminate any evidence, but I don't want to wait, as I believe his spirit is currently trapped and being tortured." "Go ahead, Sonia," the chief permitted. Sonia bundled several sprigs of herbs together and set them alight with a thought. "I call to air, clean and pure, sweep away evil, swift and sure, mandrake to unclench demon's hold, and holly wrap Ian's soul in your protective folds, a sprinkle of myrrh to escort our loved one safely, to where his wife waits with love flowing free. As I will, so mote it be." A breeze swirled around the group, catching up the fragrant smoke. It traveled across the cliffs to surround the old farmer's body. As the smoke rose into the air, those still living watched as a form as ethereal as mist rose with it. Ian Anderson nodded, raising a hand in farewell as the gentle wind carried him away from his desecrated body. Liam saw the tears glistening on Sonia's cheeks and wrapped an arm around her, drawing her into his strong embrace. It hurt like hell. The last time Liam had held her like this, he let out a shuddering breath. He hated the fact that he had been the one to suggest calling her. The fact that it was necessary did not help his guilt over knowing she was forced to see such a traumatic death. And worse, her abilities made her far too sensitive to the evil behind Ian Anderson's murder. He wanted Sonia's homecoming to be happy. Instead, already she had to deal with knowledge of a break-in, a demonic trap set for her in her own home, and now this. "Rest in peace, old friend," Ed whispered as he choked back tears. After a moment of silence, he cleared his throat and turned to the others. "Right. Thank you, Nia, honey. Boys, get to work on the crime scene. Doc, do your thing. Mace, I'll take your statement." "One thing," Sonia cautioned, stepping away from Liam so she could face everyone. "There is an amulet I noticed around Ian's neck. It isn't something he owned. I believe it's ritualistic. Don't touch it with your bare hands. I'd avoid it even with latex. Use a cloth to pick it up and wrap it well before you transport it back to the station." "We'll be careful, Nia," Liam assured her, kissing the top of her head. As she walked back to her car, he and Sam turned toward the crime scene.